Hello and welcome to another episode of Flower Breeding. In this episode we'll cover George Ball and Luther Burbank. George Ball was born in 1874 and died in 1949, created in a remarkable dynasty. His company, Ball Flora Plant, is currently owned and operated by his granddaughter, Anna Ball, and her brother now owns the Burbank Seed Company. The first George Ball Sr., started a florist shop in Chicago and began breeding new varieties of flowers to sell to customers. Indeed, in 1923 he introduced several varieties of sweet pea that he bred into the market. Due to his dislike of retail and preferring wholesaling, he switched his business to a wholesale business, purchasing much more land and expanding it into a large property in West Chicago, which became the firm's main headquarters up until and including today. Both he and the Bennery family had a close relationship, and indeed, Mr. Ball, in order to keep up with the trends of horticulture, continued to go to Europe and the Near East to find new plants to breed with, forming lifelong friendships along the way. His son, although not as successful as a breeder in terms of new innovations, he did, however, play a big role in expanding the business by purchasing another large seed company called the Burbank Company and creating several subsidiaries such as the Pan American Seed Company. Now on to Luther Burbank. As mentioned in the previous video on Luther Burbank, he had an incredible reputation as the Wizard of Santa Rosa, capturing the public imagination in the early 1900s. Although after his death he remained a relatively famous individual. If you know about a flower breeder, you're probably thinking of Luther Burbank. Luther Burbank was born in 1849 and died in 1926. He was the eldest child of Samuel Burbank and his third wife, Olive Ross, a relative of the Burbank family. He also had 12 older half-siblings. He didn't really go to school much, instead just wandering the fields aimlessly, looking at plants. He then used a piece of his father's inheritance after he died to buy a small piece of land, where he began breeding potatoes, modeling his breeding program after the works of Charles Darwin, specifically the variations of animals and plants under domestication. He relied specifically on crossbreeding to make hybrids and then backcrossing into a more desirable species to make a pure line. The first cultivar made from this process was called Early Rose, and this became the basis for a great many of his new breeds. In 1875, he sold his rights to the cultivar outright to a local farmer for $150 and moved to California, due to the great amount of agricultural innovation that was happening during that time period within that region. And after saving up some money working at a nursery in Plantuma, he opened up his own nursery to breed new varieties. During this time, he also bred a great many fruits and nuts. But his other major accomplishments include different types of flowers, such as the Shasta daisy, which was a hybrid between two Leucanthemum species, as well as trying to improve different varieties of bulbous plants, such as Amaryllis, Hippotestrum, Crinium, and Lilium. The lily genus was amongst his favorite genus to work with, and a great many of the ornamental cultivars he bred were lilies, hence the reason why he moved to California, where there's a great deal of lily cultivation and breeding going on. He obtained wild species as well from a California plant collector known as Carl Purdy. He often dug up lilies native to California to sell for a profit, much of which were used in Luther Burbank's breeding program. Although none of his lilies survived due to a lack of pest resistance, his notes and whatever was left was used to breed the Bellingham hybrid lilies through the work of David Griffith. He also attempted to breed a type of thornless cactus to substitute for grass. Cattle could not digest and get enough nutrition from cacti, however. He was a really good breeder and a rarely charismatic individual, and as such obtained the interest of a great many individuals such as Albert Einstein, Theodore Roosevelt, and Henry Ford. But there's always one principal complaint. In this case, it was the complaint that he kept almost no notes, preventing his work from being duplicated, although a few people talked to him and got some ideas. In many cases he used artificial pollination to breed new varieties, others were just randomly selecting interesting open pollinated varieties that he found in the field. He was also known for his ruthlessness. Every year, any material he wasn't going to use for new breeding projects or for cultivation were yanked up and put into a bonfire at the end of the season. His main reason for not keeping records is due to the lack of formal education and his paranoia. Due to his paranoia, he had a great fear of being forestalled or copied. Indeed, everyone under his employ had to empty their pockets completely every evening before they went home. It is widely known that at this point he had never used a scientific method at all in his breeding program. However, his methods of financing new cultivars and the germplasm he left behind became the basis of all subsequent flower breeding within California. Although in terms of current Burbank original cultivars, only Shasta daisies remain in regular production, but a great deal of California, and plausibly other North American varieties, are derived from his work. And that about covers everything. Thank you for watching.